Welcome to another part of Bell the Cat series with Om Bajaj. Today we'll be looking at a DILR problem from CAT 2024. This is more of a DILR cum cons problem. So let's go through the problem first. The table given below shows the amount in grams of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and all other nutrients per 100 grams of a given food grain. The first column shows the food grain category and the second column its code name. The table also has some missing values. So this is the information that we have been provided with. In the column 1, we can see the food grain category, cereal, millet, and pseudo cereals. In the column 2, we can see different code names for the food grains. So we have two types of cereals, C1 and C2, three types of millets, M1, M2, and M3, and two types of pseudo cereals, P1 and P2. We also have the composition of the food grains per 100 grams. For example, in C1, we can see we have 0 fats and 12 grams of other nutrients, and the carbohydrate and protein values are missing. Similarly, we have the other values as well. We have some additional facts also about the missing values. First one is both the pseudo cereals have higher amounts of carbohydrates as well as higher amounts of protein than any other millet. Then second we have is both the cereals have higher amounts of carbohydrate than any other pseudo cereal. Third one is all the missing values of carbohydrates are non-zero multiples of 5. Then all the missing values of protein, fat, and other nutrients are non-zero multiples of 4. And lastly, P1 contains double the amount of protein than M3 contains. So to begin with, since we don't have a lot of values, we cannot compare the carbohydrate content in cereals versus the millets, since we don't have a lot of the values. So first we'll be concentrating on points 3 and 4, which is the multiples part. So we know all the carbohydrates, the missing values of all the carbohydrates, they are multiples of 5, non-zero multiples of 5. Similarly, all the other values, including protein, fat, and other nutrients, they are non-zero multiples of 4. Now, let's consider C1 for an example. So first, we'll be finding the possible values. So C1 has the total of all the nutrients in C1 is 100 grams, out of which we have fat and other nutrients as 12 grams. So the carbohydrate and protein content in C1 would be 88 grams. Now, since carbohydrate is a multiple of 5, the maximum amount of carbohydrate present in C1 can be 85. All right, it can be 85. Now, if it is 85, then the protein would be 3 grams, which is not possible because protein should be a multiple of 4. The next possible set of value can be of carbohydrate can be 80 grams, which gives the corresponding value of protein as 8 grams, which is a possible value. Similarly, if we plot other points, we can plot at them like 75 and 13, 70 and 18, so on and so forth up to 5 and 83. Now, if you see all these results, you can identify a pattern here. For example, 80 and 8 is a legitimate possible value of C and P. Similarly, 60 and 28 is a legitimate and possible value of C and P. So the difference between 80 and 60 here is 20. Since 20 is also an LCM of 4 and 5 here, we can see and we can materialize on the fact that after every 20 value, we'll get a legitimate possible value of C and P. That means next value would be, we'll go further 20 down than 60, that would be 40. and 48. Similarly, next further that would be 20 and 68. We cannot go any further because it's a non-zero value. So like this, we can have a final set of possible values of C and P, which would be 80 and 8, 60 and 28, further 20 more than 40 and 48, and again 20 more, so 20 and 68. So this is the possible final set of C and P that we have. Let's do one more example. For example, P1. We can do it orally as well this time. So for P1, we have carbohydrate as 66 and other nutrients as 10. So total here is 76. That means protein plus fat should be 24 grams. So 24, we have to divide it in two parts where your fat and protein both should be non-zero multiples of 4. So how you can divide 24 into two parts of, which are both are multiples of 4? One is 20 and 4. Then we have 16 and 8, 12 and 12, 8 and 16, and 4 and 20. So we'll have four possible values of protein and fats. Five possible values, sorry. So similarly, we can do it for all the available seven nutrients, food grains. So we can have all these final possible values of all the seven food grains here in the same way that we calculated for C1 and P1 respectively. Now, if we just review our table and add all the possible values, this is what we get. Now, let's look at the other three points that we have and try to funnel more of these values of all these food grains. The first point that we have is P1 contains double the amount of protein that M3 contains. So the possible values of protein in M3 ranges from 4 to 28, and for P1 it ranges from 4 to 20. Now let's try with 4 protein in M3. If we have 4 protein in M3, then we can have 8 in pseudo cereal since it's double in P1. Similarly, if we take the value of protein in M3 as 8, we can get the corresponding protein in P1 as 16. If you see the other values are not possible, because if we take any other value like for example 12, then the possible value of pseudo-cereal in P1 in protein should be 24, which is not possible since we have listed all the possible values. So the only options left are 4 and 8 in protein for M3. Similarly, based on the sum rule here, like carbohydrate plus protein plus fat plus other nutrients should be equal to 100. Using that, we can also calculate the possible values of other nutrients. Since we are eliminating 5 of these values from 12 to 28, the corresponding values of other nutrients, which is from 12 to 28, they will also get eliminated. So by eliminating these values, we get only two possible values of M3 now. In protein now, 8 and 4. Other nutrients is 24 and 28. And similarly for P1, it would be 16 and 8. And fat in P1 would be 8 and 16. Next information that we have is, so we have now the refined possible values of protein, other nutrients, and fats in M3 and P1 respectively. Now let's look at the other information that we have. So both the cereals, that is C1 and C2, they have more carbohydrate than any other pseudo cereal. So pseudo cereals P1 and P2, one of them like P1 has the carbohydrate content of 66 and P2 we have some possible values. So let's go with P1 first. So 66. So the carbohydrate content in C1 and C2 should be more than 66. So if you see the possible values for C1 and C2, the only possible value for C1 is 80 grams and for C2 is 75 grams. And correspondingly, we have the protein values as well. So if we take 80 for carbohydrate, then the corresponding protein value is 8. And C2 we have 75 grams. The corresponding value for protein is 12. Rest of the values can be again eliminated because the cereal amount of carbohydrate should be more than the pseudo cereal amount. So we can eliminate these values as well. 60, 40, 20, 55, 35, 15, and corresponding values for protein for C1 and C2. Next information that we have is pseudo cereals. They have higher amount of carbohydrate as well as protein than any of the millets. So let's look at protein first. So P1 and P2, they have P1 we have some possible values for protein 16 and 8. For P2 we know shortly it has to be 14 grams. So to make pseudo cereals more value than millets, we'll have to pick 16 from P1. Else, if we take 8, then millet M1 has 10 grams of protein. So 8 will be less than 10. So that's not possible. So we'll have to go for 16 for pseudo cereal. If protein in P1 becomes 16, then the protein in M3 will become 8 because it's exactly half as the first condition. And again, the amount of protein in millet M2 can be only 12 because if it is more than 12, like any of the other possible values like 32, 52, or 72, then that would be more than the pseudo cereals, which is not possible according to the given case. So the only possible values for protein in M2 is 12. For M3 it should be 8, and for P1 it is 16. Rest all the other values can be eliminated, and corresponding values for other nutrients can also be eliminated. Next, we have carbohydrates. So there should be more carbohydrates in pseudo cereals than the millets. So millets, we have 56 as the defined value for M3 in carbohydrate. So we'll have to go with 70 for P2. P2 has to be 70. Else, pseudo cereals cannot have more carbohydrate than millets. So we can eliminate 5, 25, and 45. Similarly, we can eliminate 50, 30, and 10 as well because if we take that value, then this would be less than 56, which is not possible. So we'll have to go with 70 only. Here 45, 25, and 5 will get eliminated because the only possible value for protein in M2 is 12 grams. Therefore, corresponding value of 65 would be only remaining here. So if we remove all the eliminated options now, we get this kind of an information with us. So the only multiple possible values we have is for M1 in fat and nutrients. Rest all the values can be drilled down to a single value. Now let's look at the questions that we have. So how many food grains have a higher amount of carbohydrate per 100 grams of nutrients than M1? So if you see the carbohydrate column and M1, we have carbohydrate content in M1 as 62. And if you can see, five of the food grains have more value than 62. Therefore, the correct answer here is 5. Next we have is how many grams of protein are present in the 100 grams of nutrients in M2. The content in M2 of protein per 100 gram is 12 grams that we can see. Next is how many grams of other nutrients are present in the nutrients in M3. In M3 we have 24 grams of other nutrients. That also is a multiple single option that we could find. Next is what is the median amount of protein in all these nutrients. So if we can see in protein column, if we arrange this in ascending order, we can see the first value would be 8, second would be 8, third would be 10, fourth, fifth would be 12 each, sixth would be 14, and seventh would be 16. The medium, the middle term, fourth would be 12 in this case. Hence, the median of protein in all the nutrients is 12. So this was all about this particular problem from CAT 2024. So keep learning, keep practicing, and for more solved problems, subscribe to this channel. Until then, stay motivated and stay focused. Thank you so much.